Beer Sweden Skype interview. Been a long time since we've had one, and I think there's no better gentleman to kick the series off again with right now than Henok Fentie, who is the man. There he is, the man who is behind Omnipollo, and of course, if you were at the Stockholm Beer and Whisky Festival that took place over the last couple of weeks, you will know that he is a gold medal winning brewer. First of all, Henok, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.
I just got to ask you straight off the bat, you know, a few years ago, you were just another mere mortal going to the Stockholm Beer and Whisky Festival, trying all the beers, like the rest of us. And fast forward a couple of years, and you've just won gold medal for best beer in the show. How do you feel?
Well, it feels a bit surreal, to be honest, and I think it's as much luck as anything else.
Okay.
With 1,500 beers competing, it's a matter of it's having a bit of luck as well. No, but it feels fantastic, Darren. Obviously, it's this is I mean, this is the release of our third beer under the Omnipollo brand, and of course, like having a launch ending up with a gold medal, it's the best sort of start you can get. So it's been fantastic, really.
You know, they say there's no such thing as luck, Henok. But listen, let's rewind a little bit, because and we'll come back to that. That's very difficult to pronounce beer just a bit later on. But the Omnipollo, tell us a little bit about the story behind it, how you sort of got into brewing, your inspiration behind your brews, and really where you're trying to go, what you're trying to achieve with your beers.
Well, I started brewing a couple of years ago, and I was in Belgium for a year with my girlfriend, who was working there at the time, and I was studying for a year. And when I when the year was coming to an end, I decided to release or try to make try to convert a homebrew recipe into a commercial recipe and sell it in Sweden primarily from the onset. And I brewed a beer called Leon, as you're familiar with, with champagne yeast. Yeah. The idea of that beer really was to bring beer, or craft beer rather, to a new setting. And I think that's been the goal all along. It's like creating a new setting or a new context for craft beer. Leon was for me at least a spearhead beer that spread to places which prior to that only had one or two beers, usually light lagers, mass produced. And I think that's still what we're trying to do. We brew beer for clothes brands, or whether we brew beers for the Stockholm Beer and Whisky Festival. I mean, obviously these two have to interplay. I love craft beer, and it has to be quality. And getting a gold medal at the Stockholm Beer and Whisky Festival or similar type of recognition is obviously going to make me more credible in another context, where light lager or beer of lesser quality, if you want to call it that, rule. So yeah, it's an interplay all the time. Like, I do stuff both for an uninitiated crowd and also for a very initiated crowd. So yeah.
Okay, cool. So let's get to the beer itself. Now, I'm going to have a stab at it. It's one of those beer names that I really struggle with, actually, Henok. I'll be honest with you. I don't know if you saw my attempts at writing it on the web, but Nebuchadnezzar. Pretty good? Was that pretty good?
That's good. That's
good. Okay, cool. Well, listen, as you, and I think we all start calling it now rather fondly, Neb. I think we shorten it to Neb.
Yeah. That's it's been the name that me and my partner Carl have been using for the past couple of months too. It's
just that bit quicker, isn't it? What's the story behind that particular beer? How did you you know, where did you find the recipe for that? How did you come up with the idea? And you know, what's the story?
Well, I mean, you could almost say that I wish that I'd released a double IPA, the first beer I released, it would have just been much easier now with, in retrospect. You see all the sort of positive response you're getting. It was much harder using a Belgian blonde ale or something like that. Less popular beer style, if you will. Knowing that, though, I must say that it's been a great journey in terms of like having to practice and working on like lower ABV beers for a while to get a hang of how to achieve great drinkability. And I think that making that journey from a lower ABV beer to a higher ABV beer with the knowledge of how to make something very drinkable has really helped me in that endeavor. And I think that Nebuchadnezzar is a clear example of that. Having said that, though, I must say, I mean, it's 100 IBU, and still I get mixed responses. Some people think that it has a very smooth bitterness, and some people think that it's a very bitter beer. So it's you never know what the response is going to be, whether it's before it's released or not.
Are you always just as nervous when you actually put those bottles out for the first time and people can taste them? How do you feel at that particular moment?
Well, I guess it's from beer to beer. With Nebuchadnezzar, I wasn't really worried as much of what people would think when I'd actually tried the finished product. I felt quite confident that this was what I wanted to do. If people liked that, I would have been happy. But if people didn't, it would just be me in some way. And I think that over the years I've come to feel the same way about my first beer, Leon, and my second beer, Mazarin. It's always a process. You sort of tweak the recipe and so on and so forth. And as long as it's me, it's sort of, I become less vulnerable to what people think in my surrounding.
Okay. Was the beer itself basically it was a homebrew recipe that you've developed over time, and you've scaled it up to a commercial brew size? Is that right? That's
correct. That's correct. I think that one thing that I've been searching for in commercial beers, but especially in my beers, is to get the intensity that you get from a homebrew. And I think that having brewed a double IPA at home and knowing what the sort of super intensive experience can be like, and wanting to brew that on a larger scale, the only thing I could see was to make a rather sort of expensive beer. I guess that's where the term extreme beer comes from. But I wouldn't say that Nebuchadnezzar necessarily, the result in itself was an extreme beer, but the brewing process to get there definitely is.
I can imagine it's not the cheapest beer to make.
No, it's a beer I used. I mean, I don't like talking about hops too much, and I mean, I don't mind explaining what types of hops are in there, but this whole like mantra of how much hops you're using and blah blah blah, it's sort of becoming a bit tiring. Although I must say that with this beer, that was really the issue, and I can see why more brewers are talking about that. It was ridiculous. We brewed 9,000 liters of beer and we got 2,800 liters and we got 2,800 liters of beer out of that. So it's an extremely expensive beer, and I guess the result, I wouldn't have done anything different, but it was a very sort of cool experience to go from homebrew to large scale and sort of do the same thing.
I tell you, that kind of leads, I suppose, quite nicely on to my next question, because I wanted to talk a little bit about flying brewers, because I think the process of making something like Neb is something that only flying brewers will probably do. My question to you about flying brewers is, what do you think of flying brewers such as yourself, and what do you feel that you bring to the Swedish beer scene?
I think that flying brewers is a good thing. I'm probably repeating something I read somewhere, because it's usually what happens. But as long as the result is good, I don't see why the process of getting there should be criticized. It's I mean, I'm not very nostalgic, and I don't see that. Like I usually make the parallel between sort of the old music industry and the new, where downloads for a long time was seen as the enemies, like downloaders, this that, and if the results are good, then you can spread your things in an innovative way.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. I mean, I didn't come up with the concept, but me, it was a good format. I wanted to learn a lot, and if I built a brewery and spent day and night in there and not invited other flying brewers, I probably wouldn't have learned as much as I have just by doing this for a couple of years. So I think both for flying brewers themselves and for breweries, it's a good thing. It's like a exchange of information, and like Nebuchadnezzar, for example, is a direct result of having done collaborations, not least with Evil Twin and the likes. I mean, these are invaluable experiences that I think that a lot of brewers, especially in Sweden, should try to
open up to. Yeah, fantastic. Now, Henok, one last question, if I can. Obviously, you've been the talk of the buzz has been around Omnipollo over the last few days. I suppose you should really take some time to soak it all in, but I'll ask you the question anyway. What can we expect? What more can we expect from you over the coming months? Are there any new beers in the pipeline? Tell us a bit about your plans.
Well, yeah, of course. there are quite a lot of plans in the pipeline. For one, the first thing I did when Nebuchadnezzar was released was that I emptied the Swedish homebrew shop, Humlegårdens Ekolager, of all the Galaxy hops that they had, and I sent it down to Belgium to brew a follow-up double IPA. So that's coming out in November. No name yet. It's going to come. It's going to be something hard to pronounce.
Okay, good.
And after that, I mean, the most discussed thing that I'm doing now, or the thing that's closest in time, is that I'm doing a follow-up collaboration with Jeppe from Evil Twin. I'm doing a beer called Free Beer, and that's a beer which has been brewed by me and Jeppe at the Proof Brewery in Belgium. It's an IPA of 6.2%, using Australian and New Zealand hops. Quite a lot of it, but a very summery sort of IPA, just to give you a last whiff of summer. But the twist is that we've gotten the Bishop's Arms pub chain, great bar chain, of course, to sponsor this collaboration. So the beer is actually going to be handed out for free in Denmark primarily, but also in Sweden. And unfortunately, you have to charge a small fee for the beer in Sweden because it's illegal to give out beer.
Okay.
It's being released next week on Saturday in Sweden, and the week before. So this Saturday coming in Denmark, and then it's going to be rolled out in Sweden over the next coming week.
Okay, I'm sure that'll get people talking.
Yeah, it's already
challenging concept. Okay then, Henok, listen, as I say, I'm going to finish as I started. Congratulations on all your success. Meteoric, but particularly for Neb, I thought it was an amazing beer.
Thank you.
As you say, more than a touch of homebrew about it. And wish you all the success in the future. I'm sure, as you say, there are a lot of flying brewers now, but you're probably flying higher than most of them. Congratulations, and I'm sure we'll see you very soon.
Same to you. Thank you so much.
Take care, Henok. Cheers.
Okay,
bye-bye.
see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.